I'm very cognizant of that when I write, to write in kind of shorter sentences, because I tend to go on and on and on, and so, not that anybody would notice that at all. So I actually kind of made that suggestion, I think, to one of the paragraphs
You did,
under,
yeah.
right?
Okay, I mean, send me your comments and we'll make some changes. We'll bring
Can
it
you-
back next month.
I'll tell you what, can we just make a copy of that before we leave? It
Can you
is
hear
on
me now?
agenda. All right, well, just send it to him, please.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, all right, so we'll move on from that and come back to it next month. Okay. Anything else under other? All right. So we have two things left on the agenda. Before I go into the second comment section, I will go over some upcoming important dates. We have, as has been mentioned a couple times this evening, homecoming football game and band day this Saturday, October 17th, 2 p.m. at the high school. We have a community input meeting, October 28th, 8 o'clock p.m. at the high school. For those people who are not familiar with the community input meeting, we have 2 a year. And at those meetings, are we going to have a preview for the, usually at the October meeting, we have a preview of the musical. So we'll have a preview of the musical, and then there's not really board business, but we do have some things that we're working on that it'll be kind of formatted, but it's pretty open. So we have that meeting. The first one of 2 is October 28th, 8 o'clock at the high school. Daylight savings time, finally. Sunday, November 1st. I do not like standard time. I like standard time. Daylight is not good. So we're going back to standard. This is not daylight savings. And school is closed for students on Tuesday, November 3rd. That's the Superintendent's Day and Election Day. So make sure you get out and vote. It's closed for kids, but teachers will be there. And the schools are closed on November 11th, as that is Veterans Day. And our next scheduled board meeting is, regular scheduled board meeting is November 18th at Steele School at 8 p.m. Okay, so we'll go back into our second comment period time. And I asked, did you follow the same protocol, stating your name, address, so in case we have to follow up with comments. This is not a timed session. However, we ask that you be cognizant of the time, as it is getting late. If you have new things to bring up, please do so. If things have already been discussed, have been brought up, let's kind of, unless it's new, save those comments for another time, or you can contact us another way if you feel that you have to have that conversation. Also, one thing, if you have a comment that might precipitate discussion, what we'll do is we'll hear the comment and then we'll talk among the board as if we want to put it onto the agenda for a later discussion. Okay? I think that's all. Can't talk about students and...
I think you need to mention, though, that the board will be staying.
Oh, right.
That's one of the reasons
Right.
why we're concerned about the comment period. Because
Right.
we have an obligation to have a conversation about the resolutions that we will be voting on at the convention this weekend.
Right.
So this community is welcome to observe that conversation, but it will go on as long as we need to discuss
The resolutions.
25 or 30 resolutions that will be voted on at the convention.
Okay. So thank you for adding that on, Ms. Hoggett.
Good evening, Lawrence and Palmer, Delaware Avenue, Freeport. I actually have 3 things I want to address, so I'll do them one by one and let other people get a chance to come up. The first one is that on the suspension of policy 1130, I think this comes up periodically. Are we going to change the policy, or do we keep suspending it every time there's a request?
So I will say this. I'm going to put it out here in public. We were to form a subcommittee to discuss this, and we have not met to address this. we will have to work on, I will talk with the board, we'll have a discussion among the board as to how we need to move forward to establish the committee or reestablish or deal with the people who volunteered to do it and look into addressing the policy so that we can have something that we don't have to keep doing the suspension. Okay? Go ahead.
The next one is, I guess, is more for the superintendent. Can we get an update on where we upgrading our electronic capability? I keep hearing that sometime before too long we will be taking the exams that the students will in electronic methods. So I guess we should be able to upgrade our system to accommodate that.
So there's really two parts to that. One is the online testing. The state is introducing kind of a pilot of that this year and asking for districts who want to volunteer. It's possible that we might be volunteering one grade because you have to pilot anyway according to the state, and it will let us test out our network capabilities and whether or not we're going to be able to do this. But the state has not told districts. Well, one of the things the new commissioner did say is that the plan is that in the next 4 years, by 2020, they're saying that all schools are going to be taking the assessments online. What the state has not told us is how many computers we're actually going to need to do that. So at the former commissioner and one of the former iterations of the online testing, they were saying that we needed to have one computer for every child in the largest grade band in this system. So for example, let's say that our 8th grade had 400 kids. That would mean that we would need to have at least 400 available computers for testing. A, there is no space for 400 computers, and B, I mean, it's just not reasonable. She's not told us at all what the latest iteration of that is, and I think that is in part because they don't know. As far as our network and infrastructure, we have spent an enormous amount of time on this. Over the summer, we basically stripped down our infrastructure in district office, which has the backbone of our entire system. We've rebuilt several of those systems. We still need to work on re-imaging all of our instructional computers. We're working on re-imaging our administrative computers. We still need to do some...
Can you do that in English, please?
Oh, sorry. Oh, he asked a question. I thought he knew what I was talking about. Re-imaging, if you imagine a brand new computer, and then after a couple of years, you put software on there, you store things on there. Re-imaging basically wipes the whole thing clean and puts a whole new version of everything on there. So if you're using Acrobat and it used to have version 3.0 and you're up to, the world is up to 4.0, it upgrades that. If you're using Microsoft Office and it's, version, Microsoft Office 97 and then you're up to, I don't know, whatever, 2015, it upgrades that. So it basically wipes it all out and puts all the upgraded versions. And what that helps you do is it helps you maintain the compatibility amongst all your machines. So there are machines that are imaged for administrators, and then which includes clerical staff, and then there's images for instructional, which are teachers and students. So we're in the process of doing the administrative computers. We need to move on to the instructional computers. We upgraded our internet capability through something called Bowtie, which is something BOCES put together, which is many of the Nassau County school districts are on that. We will see a savings in cost and increased bandwidth as a result of it. So there's a lot of work that has been done. We're not nearly finished. I am hoping that by the end of February that we will be mostly done. There's already been an impact, a positive impact. We're just not done.
Okay, thank you. I'll let someone else.
I couldn't help but notice that the board had trouble mustering an additional delegate to some convention. And I recall last year that you also had trouble forming a subcommittee. Now, I think the answer to that, and also I'm looking at the board here, we have 4 of the 5 members here with 2 years of experience. So the answer to that would be an additional member to the board. Over the last few election cycles, we've had many people of substance who have just come up short. Coming to mind is Tracy Mahler, Mr. Palmer, George Ciberon. These are people, substantial people that would, who wanted to serve on the board, who wanted to help you out, but they just came up a little bit short. And I think we should make some room on the board for more people, because apparently you're having trouble, among the 5 of you, mustering for certain tasks and so forth. And with more people on the board, there would be more stability as the turnover continues. So I hope you take that into consideration for the improvement to the function of the board and the school district. Now, Madam President, last month I asked you about the head count of administrators, and I thought the answer was that there wasn't any increase in head count. Is that correct? Is that how I understood it?
Can you, I'm sorry, Mr. Kugelmas, it's been a long month. Could you please rephrase that, re-ask that question, because we don't remember.
The head count of administrators.
In terms of, do we have more
Did you
than
increase?
last
Did you
year?
increase the number of
Not to my knowledge.
administrators?
Do we?
One position was eliminated and another position was created. The position that was created is an administrative position, but it replaced a management position.
So are you talking about language?
No.
We've
Oh,
traded.
you were just talking about curriculum, right? The curriculum department?
I was talking about technology.
Technology. We
Technology.
traded out. So there was a position that we've not hired for, but this director of technology is kind of in lieu of another. So there's not an increase. There's not a number
And
increase.
The director of ESL and foreign language replaced a supervisor of ESL and foreign language, which are both administrative positions.
Okay, now, let's just compare those 2 positions. The new head of language, Dr. Jimmy Camillaris, makes $137,000. In addition to, and he's a new employee.
Excuse me. Okay, hold on a second. And we can't have, can we have that conversation? I'm sorry.
I just want to compare apples to apples here. Okay, so we won't mention names, okay? So we have a new administrator who makes $137,000, plus health care benefits, blah, blah, blah. And the person he's supposedly replacing was a teacher, right? I mean, somebody who teaches four classes.
Was a supervisor in a supervisory unit under an administrative certification.
And so supervisors don't teach at all?
Supervisors could teach up to 2 classes. Some of them teach 0, some teach 1, some teach 2. But they're not teachers. They're not in a teacher's bar.
Okay, so, because I don't understand this. So in other words, like, is a supervisor like supervisor of math and supervisor of English? So they teach just a few classes?
Anywhere between 0 and 2.
Okay.
In addition to the administrative duties that they have to perform with respect to the APPR regulations of evaluating teachers, et cetera, and handle professional development and
So that supervisor is still with us, so presumably the supervisor went from 2 to 5 classes?
which.
In that particular case.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's been a substantial increase in expense there, because we have, let's say that teacher taught 2 classes, okay? So at $125,000 base salary, and we're not talking about the extra $45,000 in benefits that said teacher would get. And you're adding somebody else, okay? So in other words, you have a supervisor that, let's say, there's $75,000 of her salary is as a supervisor, plus an additional $12,000 stipend. So she's at 98. So you're bringing somebody else in, but somebody else in with benefits. So what you've done is like added maybe another $80,000 or $90,000 in payroll costs.
Not necessarily, because if that person that is now in the classroom full-time is now teaching sections somebody else would have taught in a full-time teaching position. So if that person was teaching 2 and is now teaching 5, the 3 classes that person is now teaching that they weren't teaching before offsets that cost.
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about costs in the language department, I have a list of your class sizes. And you have classes in the language department with 6 people, 8 people. So you put that teacher in there that costs us $160,000 with 8 students. That she should have 25 students. All of your teachers should have 25 students. We can't afford to pay somebody to just have 8 students in their classroom. That's like Henry Ford running an assembly line and just, oh, we'll produce 8 cars today, we'll do 25 tomorrow. You just can't do that. It's costing us a lot of money. In other words, you have a teacher now that costs us $160,000 for their 9 months' work. I'm talking about salary plus benefits. And you're only putting 8 kids in front of her.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Now you multiply for that class. We're just talking about for that class, okay?
So hold on a second. I just want to make a clarification. So what I'm hearing you say is that we have a teacher who is teaching 6 students. Are you alluding to the fact that that teacher is teaching 6 students for the entire day?
No.
Well, I just want to make sure that it's
Okay,
clear.
no, I
that,
understand.
That
I'm talking about for
because
this-
that could be
for this
one
class.
period of,
Yeah, that's right.
and I don't know if that number is.
Well, I don't know that that's accurate. I don't
Well,
know that
I got it from you last year.
I don't know that it isn't a combined class. There are cases, for example, where you might have a Spanish
No,
tutor
that, yeah,
in
that,
the same class
the
that-
6 was AP Italian.
I'm talking. You might have a class.
I got the information. You know, you're just conjecturing. I've got the information right in front of me.
And do you see the class periods? And are you comparing the
Please,
class
no
periods
rhetorical
to see-
questions.
No, it's not a rhetorical.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I think that it's not a back and forth.
No.
So
If there's a question, what's your question?
My question is, my statement is that there's a lot of waste in the foreign language department.
That's your opinion.
That a teacher that's making $160,000 for that one class, which should have 24 students, when they only have 6, that's very inefficient. So in effect, for that one class, she's costing us $500,000. We need productivity from our schools. You just can't fill up classrooms with 7 kids, 12 kids, 16 kids, 14 kids. You got to get it up to, we don't have the money for that. And that's why you call us a low-wealth district, and we don't have money for this, and we don't have money for that. We have the money, you're just wasting it. Because it's not the teacher's fault, it's the administrator's fault, because they're not putting the proper amount of students in a classroom. They're forming classes of insufficient size. And you can do that. And you're teaching these advanced classes. You complain about not having money from New York State, but you only have to do 2 credits of language, and not in Illinois. You don't have to do any credits of language in Illinois, or Minnesota, or Ohio, or California. But we go overboard, and then what do? We put 15 kids in a classroom in Italian, and we put 8 kids in a class in French. And you could do it a lot more efficiently. That's the way I'm pointing, and that's where you're wasting money.
Point.
Besides hiring another administrator, which added another $80,000 to the payroll.
Okay. Your opinion is noted.
Pardon?
I said your opinion is noted.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
I
you.
said your opinion, your statement is noted.
Okay. I have one more thing if we have time. Okay. Our state senator, Dean Skelos, is under indictment for monetizing his position for the benefit of his son. You could call that nepotism, I guess. And we all know that nepotism is not just wrong or harmful. Now, the Southern attorney federal attorney thinks it's a felony. And I asked last year about nepotism in the school district. I haven't heard anything. I asked about cronyism. It would take one clerk 1 hour just going through the zip codes to see the potential ranks of crony hires that we have in the school district. But I don't get any numbers. Now, rumor has it that a high-ranking administrator got a job for a relative in this school district. He's departed, recently departed. And I was wondering whether our school board members, especially the members who are attorneys and officers of the court, have any intention on reporting this to the district attorney, this nepotism, this fraud on our school district that obviously, if it is true, would have had to been a conspiracy between that said administrator, allegedly, and, because it's just a rumor I heard, and, the superintendent and the HR superintendent and maybe a school board member. I mean, these people, if they knew about nepotism and did nothing about it, they are to blame as well. So I would hope, and we won't mention names, that you would do your responsibility and, report these type of problems to the proper officials, the Nassau County District Attorney. That's it, thanks.
So seeing that there isn't anyone, one more?
I gave way for the third one.
Pardon?
I gave way for the third one.
I understand.
I
Okay.
raised an issue at the last board meeting, which I'm going to raise again. Madam President, Madam Superintendent, Principal, and hopefully before long, President Hillary Clinton. There's a mural at the high school that I think is a bit outdated in that it depicts the boys either in math and science activities and sports activities, and the girls in cheerleading and cooking activities. Now, I've got 2 girls coming up in the school system, and I'm hoping by the time they get to the high school, there's been some updating of the mural. Now, when I raised it the last time, there was a lot of heat, but not much light. And I think I understand at least one board member's view on this, but I'd like to find out the other board members' views and the superintendent's view.
So, as I stated in my opening comments, I don't think any one of us are really prepared to have a discussion at this time on this. I can speak to the other board members and see if we would like to have a discussion on this item at a later date, if that would be satisfactory. Again, it's late, we have this other business to take care of, and I'd like to see poll, because I don't think, are we ready to have a conversation on this at this time? So, can I ask if the board would entertain having a discussion on this at a later time, putting it on the agenda at another time for discussion?
I'm fine with that. And that's good.
Okay, Mr. Press. Okay, so so
How?
at this point, Mr. Palm,
How will I know when it gets on the board agenda?
pardon?
How will I know when it gets on the agenda?
Well, we've just agreed that we will put it on the agenda for another time. So at this point, I'm assuming that we would look at it, putting it on for the November meeting? November?
That's pretty long.
Pretty long, because we have the audit reviews and things.
Fire chief that was supposed to be here, there, and then this is pretty long.
Okay, so December?
That's fine.
Okay, so we will put it on the December agenda
Thank
to
you.
try to entertain a discussion, and we'll do it either, it will be listed on as a discussion item or under other. Okay? Thank you.
Karen Montalbano, 2611 Park Avenue, Baldwin. Last time I apologized.